Thankfully, there are a few matchups that we can hide in from the ranged blobbing problem because those factions don't really have many ranged tools at all. Of course, Nurgle and Slaanesh being two of those. Today, I'm taking Nurgle against the fast Slaanesh boys and girls and whatever else. We've got Kugath Plaguefather leading the way here alongside the Festering Stooges and the brand new Pox Riders, the Barons of the Bog. Unit of Pox Riders you might actually take. Mainly because they have a minus 25% mass and 25% weapon and AP area of effect. They also refresh vigor of friendly units, which are below 50% HP, which is a little bit weird, but you definitely can get some benefit out of this. Not very consistent, but mainly you bring these guys for the weapon strength reduction, considering that Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes got a significant weapon strength buff, and in general, Slaanesh just deals a lot of damage. Should be relatively useful in helping my units survive. We've got 3 Plague Bears and 2 Nurglings also to round out the starting army. Plague Drones up in the sky, some spawns of Nurgle, Plague Toads of Nurgle, some Furies here, and some Nurglings for Slaanesh. My opponent with the Herald of Slaanesh on the Chariot. It's going to be the best lord choice still, in my opinion, for Slaanesh in most circumstances. Protected by the Eternal Entourage. They don't have Guardian, but they do have a Hero Lord effect, which increases their melee attack and weapon damage by 20%. Well, melee attack by 14, but 20% extra weapon damage and AP is significant. Again, the unit with already decent weapon strength and AP, at least for a Chariot type Lord, definitely will help out in that way. Likewise, the Demonettes, they got higher weapon damage overall. They're now at a full on 50 total weapon damage with 35 armor piercing. Soul Scent also got upgraded, so it can now go up to 50% extra armor piercing damage. So between these different things, they can definitely get fully juiced up and operational. Unfortunately, of course, being that it only affects lords and heroes, they can't get buffed up even more by the Internal Entourage, but that's just fine. We've got 5 Hellscourge Marauders and 2 Spears as well. Another Exalted Demonette in reserve. 3 spawns, 3 what are they? Hell Striders, a couple of Furies, 3 more Spears, and a Marauder anti-infantry style. So let's jump in. We are in Arnheim, which, because of the distance to points here, this may end up putting me at a little bit of a disadvantage. But it's fine. You know, we got to test things out and see anyway. Kugath hopefully should be able to hold down one objective pretty well. And depending on where things play out, I'll either have supporting with, you know, just basic units, or we'll see. Might have to support with the elites. It all kind of depends, again, on how the engagement plays out. My plan, sort of from a tactical perspective, is to push across the top, seize this top objective, and then try and move through this gap right here in an area where I can potentially get a good blob fight, then capture this objective number 1. But let's see. Got my Nurglings hidden in the woods here as a reserve to come through and reinforce if I need them here, you know, kind of after I've left that objective primarily. My opponent coming through with the Exalted Herald of Slaanesh. Just such a huge fan of this. Perfect Vigor Chariot with Devastating Flanker on 85 charge bonus. Means you can obviously jump that up with double, and it will never decay. The speed will never decay either because of the Perfect Vigor, so it's very, very strong. Vigor refreshes in general and Perfect Vigor are insane, which is why, you know, when the Barons of the Bog originally said they were going to have a Vigor refresh, I was a little bit worried they might be too good, but given that it's conditional of units being below 50% HP, I think that's probably fine. Yeah, units less than 50% HP. So it's weird. It did almost show like it was affecting them right there initially. Yeah. Oh, just the recharge. I see. Okay, so it's every 23 seconds it refreshes 1% vigor or whatever. I don't know. Anyway, Kugath moving through. Throwing some stuff at some Marauders, you know, additional little damage here, a little damage there. Nothing too crazy yet. Let's see how he can get on. My opponent just scouting way forward here, kind of pushing his units up into my deployment zone. Furies are going to try and drop here. This is just a summon unit of Furies. I'm not sure exactly what the intention is, but they are going to get absolutely destroyed by the RoR Pox Riders. They count as infantry. These guys have anti-infantry and high weapon strength. They also have decent stats. Not crazy good, but they're all right. 41, 54 melee defense, especially with Cloud of Flies active. They'll be able to tank a lot of engagements pretty effectively in melee. Not a whole lot of armor, though, of course, being Nurgle. I mean, I take that back. 80 armor. Wow, that's actually very good. I didn't realize Pox Riders had that much armor. That's actually not bad. So all that together gives them quite a bit of defensive capabilities. Right into the pillar. Good job, dude. Right into that obelisk. Oh, fantastic. So these Eternal Entourage are going to go hide in the woods here, get out of my line of sight. The points are going to come online in just a moment here. So Kugath right now spending his ammunition on relatively low value targets, but I still just need to deal the damage as much as I can to them. We're going to switch to those Exalted Demonettes, as they are obviously a much more expensive target. My opponent just kind of massing his forces on my border, not really pushing in to get the capture at this exact moment. Let's see. Going to start to come down. I'm pretty comfortable with my forces on this objective. We're going to leave a couple Plague Bears here initially, and then eventually just the one Plague Bear with the Barons, and then also bring the Nurglings forward here to try and get this objective. As you can see, we've pretty much already almost secured that objective. This objective also almost been already secured by Slaanesh. So in terms of objective play, the removal of the comeback mechanic just means that you're, actually going to start to play the game right off the bat. I also bring in these Plague Drones here. I hadn't seen any Furies yet, so I wasn't sure if my opponent had any. Of course, he does have some in reserve, which is going to be a big problem for me in just a minute, but throwing those Death's Heads. Demonettes are still very squishy, even if they hit quite a bit harder, so we'll throw those Death's Heads and get some good damage in there. Kugath also fells a few models with his shot there. We're going to continue to pile in these gross bodies as well, try and get on this capture point. Unfortunately, they were not all in on the capture point quite yet, so Stream of Corruption, though, should even this fight out here. Just absolutely shreds those two defensive Marauders here. Meanwhile, up on the high ground, you can see my opponent going for an absolute full surround here. These Plague Bears are going to eat the charge of the Demonettes in the face, so let's kind of just see how that damage goes. Slicing shards in the back, mostly a swing and a miss, doesn't do too much damage. But then the Barons of the Bog going to move in and try and get these Hellstriders here. Do they actually have infantry capture weight? Because they're not. Slaanesh, you would think, should have more capture weight here and start actually ticking up the objective. But anyway, Nurglings also coming through. We've also got some spawn coming through, so I may end up losing this objective just through sheer weight of capture, but we'll find out. These other Plague Bearers also, a little bit of a miss micro, allow the Internal Entourage to come out and just absolutely smash this one unit of Plague Bears in a brutal rear charge. Kugath going to come through and try and stop this from happening. See that they kind of momentarily stand around after having finished that unit, but there it is. And we've just about lost that top ground objective. The Marauder Zerg has been such that, like a lot of my units aren't on the capture, like this unit of Nurglings right here. It's definitely a mistake. Likewise, the Plague Bears end up just falling over there, and the Barons of the Bog now also taking significant damage. They should be able to tank fairly well, but I did notice the buff to Demonettes and Exalted Demonettes makes them trade much better against Plague Bears. My Plague Drones also paying a horrible price. I'm trying to manually land them to save them from these Furies, which is not exactly going to work. They're still going to die, but at the very least I get all these Furies in a nice little bunch, throw a Stream of Corruption to them, deal some good HP damage, but still, definitely not worth it. That's a huge amount of value that I've lost. And on a flying unit, too, a non-infantry flying unit, definitely could have used all those points just bringing in more spawns, and it probably would have been better. But anyway, there's the Bog continuing to hold out on the high ground despite being very low on leadership and HP. They're charmed, so their melee attack is a bit down. They do have some spawn supporting in here, getting some damage on the Herald there, which is definitely very good. Momentary lapse of micro from my opponent leads me to get some free damage there. Did manage to fully force this center capture weight down, but faced with the decision, probably I should move Kugath up with some other forces and just leave like the Festering Stooges and some other Plague Bears here to defend, and then come up and try and retake this high ground objective. But instead, I'm going to try and focus here. My opponent is bringing in some more units and just kind of vaguely threatening this position here, so I'm a little bit worried about just getting overvalued on capture with just leaving the Exalted Plague Bears there. So we also brought in some Nurglings. Probably should come to reinforce here again. Kind of hindsight's 20/20, but anyway, Barons of the Bog continuing to fight, continuing to hold, doing an admirable job. Even if they haven't got that much damage value in, the fact that they're able to just hold up so many units in and of itself tactically might be useful. In terms of capture, though, it's really a hopeless situation. He's just got so much more infantry, monstrous infantry than me. The Toads get momentarily distracted, having to turn around and collapse on this Hellstrider. My own Furies come through to help collapse as well, and the Nurglings My opponent's Zerg force here through the center, though, comes up. One Nurgling gets isolated. Again, another mistake by me. But we'll see. Getting close here, and watch the Bog Barons breathe their last breath as they fall over the nice grass and breathe no more. They were able to do, again, hold out for a substantial amount of time. Not too impressed by the damage output on them, but, I mean, taking them and the Festering Stooges, and I think actually using them in tandem would have been better. Like, honestly, in hindsight, maybe I should have just left Kugath up on this top objective and reinforced with lots of Nurglings, and then use the Festering Stooges and the Bog Barons and everything else in tandem to go after this center objective. I don't know. It's hard to say, you know, tactically what the best decision would have been, but certainly at this point, I'm starting to get behind on army damage value, or at the very least, it's even. And in terms of units on the field, I am being heavily, heavily outvalued, right? Nurglings up here getting shut down. Festering Stooges are going to get Acquiescence to lower their melee defense. And now here comes the Regiment of Renown. Seekers, Heart Seekers even. The Eternal Entourage doing a sick amount of damage here. Yeah, you can see the Festering Stooges are up at their healing cap. They do manage to get their extra melee defense. They're charmed, though. They're acquiesced. All the things. They're thankfully not soporific must, at least for the time being, but just in general, having a very, very rough go of it. Kugath going to try and support here, but they're punching back. You can see the Eternal Entourage also has taken significant damage here. Not to mention they're getting drained by the area of effect. Drain of Kugath, of course, over here. Tried to make a push to get at this objective. Again, a little bit of a miss macro, if you will. Should have just had these units maintaining this center objective, or just keep going all in on this top ground objective. Also allowing these Furies to way over chase. Finally bringing in some more spawn. But, yeah, I mean, I would definitely change things somewhat in terms of both build and kind of how I executed it as well, but there were definitely some bright spots here. Kugath, of course, very, very powerful. He's basically completely untouched at this point. He's just forcing the Herald to go other places. Right now, the Herald's very low on HP, so I figure if I can bean her a few times with the, you know, thrown Nurglings, then maybe we can force her into disintegration, or banishment, if you will. Speaking of banishment, my own Nurglings getting banished over here. Nurglings are not that fast. Spawns are definitely faster, so they should be able to catch up and help, but not before these units actually start to crumble away. And it's super frustrating because, like, there's just enough units that are just tattered enough that I feel like I'm on the cusp of being able to come back. I just can't get my units to the objectives before the game's actually going to end. So yeah, credit to my opponent. He definitely played it very well. A few less mistakes on my side, and I feel like I definitely had the tools I needed to win here. Watch as these spawn charge in. Try and support their little boy bros, the little Nurgling lads. Get in and fight the Slaanesh spawn. Should be able to finish them off. The Marauders holding, though. Of course, their 42 melee defense on the Hell Scourges definitely is quite beneficial. But looks like the Herald actually crumbled away while I wasn't looking. Kugath managed to get a few more hits on her. Likewise, the Festering Stooges and the Eternal Entourage ended up training out at the end of the day. Just, you know, killing each other, which cost-wise is pretty good for both units. Probably both units ended up more than paying for themselves, but fascination on these Furies as they get a nice rear charge on the other Slaanesh Furies. And, yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm just more or less fighting for glory because it's very much hopeless. I'm not going to be able to win. It's a full 3 cap for Slaanesh. So it is what it is. Like I said, I feel like different macro choices and a little bit of a different positioning choices. I probably could have won here, but definitely credit to my opponent. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. It's interesting, you know, these Bog Barons, again, didn't pay for themselves, but if I had used them a little bit better, stacked them literally on top of the Festering Stooges, maybe that would have turned out a little bit differently. Yeah, I don't know. Keeping them maybe alongside Kugath also would have been pretty good. Like, it's hard to say. Definitely need to play around with them a little bit more and see. Kugath certainly paid for himself, as did the Festering Stooges. They're definitely the 2 units in my army that got the most damage out, so being as it is, again, just know with the Plague Drones against a very skilled player like my opponent, who's a veteran tournament player, just a no there. Like, obviously, if I had not brought them and brought just more spawns and more infantry and whatnot in, maybe we could have held the capture of that high ground objective, or, you know, done some other things there. So anyway, mistakes by me, but definitely still a very fun game. The Herald, actually, I'm surprised how limited her damage was. He was tossing out slicing shards. Personally, I like Lore of Shadows a little bit better because I think Pit of Shades is a little bit harder to dodge than slicing shards. But yeah, I'm just kind of surprised he didn't get more value on there. I guess he might have been running for his life a lot of the time. Their Eternal Entourage, though, definitely pay for themselves. I think they're, what, 1,700? So that's pretty solid overall. Exalted Demonettes kind of get pounded, too. Unfortunately, they face a lot of ranged fire there. The limited range fire that Nurgle can bring to the table. The other one, though, 1639, just goes to show those units. I mean, Exalted Demonettes were already decent if used correctly before. They were just a little bit hard to use correctly. Now they should be a little bit more reliable. They're still going to be glass cannons, absolutely, but they absolutely will dish the pain if you can get them into melee. Spawn's also just awesome in Domination for the time being. Furies likewise do very well taking out my Plague Drones, but what it is. Yeah, very fun stuff. Hopefully you guys enjoyed watching that one. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.